Welcome back. The Central African Republic Parliament has approved a law creating a special criminal court to investigate allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The United Nations Deputy Representative in the Central African Republic said that the tribunal, which will be composed of both national and international judges, would begin formal investigations as soon as next week. One of the country's lawmakers says with this new law, citizens will now be able to count on the justice system to put an end to more than a decade of ethnic and religious conflict. Rights activists welcome the law, saying the perpetrators of violence, killings, rape and torture can now face a meaningful legal action. Central African Republic has suffered a series of violent political crises since former President Francois Bozize seized power in a 2003 coup. Joining us in the studio to discuss this is a legal practitioner and African affairs analyst, Alans Agbaka. Good to have you on Network Africa.
It's my pleasure to be here once again.
Yeah, so what do you make of this new approval, the parliamentary approval in the Central African Republic?
Yes, you see, this is a hybrid to the common tribunal. But since independence, Central African Republic has been having problems since 1960. You know, this is not the first time until it became very serious in 2003 when Francois Bozize, now through coup d'etat, overthrew the government, and he was in power until 2013, where the Salako groups, militias came in and removed him. So there have never been stability. But you see, the unfortunate thing is that those who perpetrate this crime move freely in the street. And then they have a weak judicial system. So, but with the constitution and composition of this special criminal court, the confidence will now be restored on the people of Central African Republic.
So you think the people can now count on this?
Yes, they can, because the composition is going to include both the nationals and the international judges. And so they will be, they have equally set out a system to see that the victims, the witnesses are equally protected. But you know, just like our Justice Oputa said in Nigeria, he said that justice is of a three-way traffic, not just two. Justice for the victim, justice for the defendant, and then justice for the society whose norms have been discredited. So it will be so painful that people commit crime with impunity and then sit out and work freely in the same society. So I think this will restore some confidence to the people of Central African Republic.
So why do you think it was, necessary to bring in, international judges? What about the people from the system? Is it that they don't have confidence in the local judges to do the job?
They might have confidence, but it will repose more confidence by the time you bring external people. And I remember that though that the crimes they are facing is crime committed within the territory of Central African Republic. But however, we are guided by international law, particularly law against humanity.
Okay, do you think that, this new court, when it's eventually, established, do you think that it will end the spate of war crimes in the country? Do you think it may be enough to deter people from committing?
I think it will reduce it to the barest minimum. And if that is achieved, to that extent, they've been able to make appreciable progress.
Right.
Because people will know that it is not free. You don't commit a crime and go freely. That a day will come that you face the law. Okay.
Right. In 2014, the national authorities in the CAR established a similar court to investigate and, prosecute serious human rights violators, but that did not see the light of day. Do you see history repeating itself in spite of, what we've said so far?
Yes, it might not, because they've given serious publicity and they've been able to put some logistics on the ground before coming up with this. And by next week, I think they will be able to take off.
Right, thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Legal practitioner and African affairs analyst Alans Agbaka. Good to have you on the show.
My pleasure once again.
Let's move on. Zimbabweans will head to the voting booths on the 30th of July in the first election since former leader Robert Mugabe was ousted. It's a poll that, if certified as free and fair, could be crucial to bringing back foreign investors following decades of an economic decline. President Emerson Mnangagwa announced a date this week seeking to bolster his legitimacy following the November military coup. Missing from July's election for the first time in 20 years will be Zimbabwe's foremost political gladiators, Mugabe, and longtime leader of the opposition movement for democratic change, Morgan Tsvangirai, who died of cancer in February. Mr. Mnangagwa will stand against Nelson Chamisa, the president of the opposition party Movement for Democratic Change. Elsewhere now, children are bearing the brunt of a devastating humanitarian crisis in the eastern province of Tanganyika in the Democratic Republic of Congo due to conflict. Faced with extreme poverty, hunger and disease, displaced children are as young as 5 years old are being put to work as sand miners to help support their parents.
Displaced children work as sand miners in Tanganyika province in the southern eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Conflict in the province has displaced over 630,000 people from their homes in a year. Parents who find it difficult to provide for their families often send out children to work and bring some money home. 14-year-old Francois Asani Felipe was a student before her family was displaced by conflict. Now she works alongside other children, harvesting sand from the shores of Lake Tanganyika.
The sand is very heavy and we have to walk far to transport it.
According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, Congo's Tanganyika province has seen a sharp escalation of violence since late last year, with new armed groups forming and an increase in attacks and the use of firearms. The conflict is part of a worsening humanitarian crisis in Congo. Militia violence has risen since President Joseph Kabila's refusal to step down when his constitutional mandate expired in 2016. Faced with poverty, hunger and disease, children as young as 5-year-olds are being forced to work and help support their parents.
We start work at 4:30 a.m. and we finish working at 8 in the morning.
Francois takes a break after the morning shift and returns to work again from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The United Nations International Labour Organization says there is a strong link between child labor and conflicts and disasters, which causes joblessness and displacement that make children vulnerable. Many parents here say they have no choice but to send their children out to work.
Our parents never made us work like this. We just sat back and our father will bring us food. But now that we are displaced, we are really suffering.
I wish we could stop transporting sand and go back to school.
According to the International Labour Organization, nearly half of the children in forced labor do hazardous work, and more than a third do not go to school.
Well, that's Network Africa. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.